All right, welcome everyone to the new JFK show number 203. And Larry Rivera is locked and loaded tonight. He's going to be, well, we're going to put it like this. Jack White had the many faces of Lee Harvey Oswald, and Larry's going to have the many signatures of Lee Harvey Oswald tonight. So go ahead, Larry. Is there anything else we need to talk about, boys? Before we get with Larry?
You want to get started?
Do a screen share.
Yeah, let me get this. Okay, yeah, I got it here. I also wanted to do a little sample of overlaying of the signature. So I have two programs running here right now. Okay, and but we're gonna start with the blog. Let me get the screen share going on here.
Yeah. Hey, Don, we don't get near the comments when you're not on the show, by the way.
Yeah, I gathered that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here we go. Like Gary was saying, Jack did a very important video, and this was in the early '90s on the many faces of Lee Harvey Oswald. I put a link up here just in case anybody wants to go, because it's still up there on YouTube, Jim, by the way. So it hasn't been taken.
Well, it's a classic, right? It would be stupid to take it down, but they do a lot of stupid things.
Yeah, yeah. And but basically, I don't think that anybody has ever studied the many signatures of Lee Harvey Oswald, Lee Oswald. And I just went and I just found, I just went and looked for some of his signatures that are on the internet. And there are quite a lot of different versions of his signature. And I think that this is a very, very important thing here that we're going to do here tonight, because it's sort of like a history of who Lee Oswald was, or how they assembled, this character of Lee Oswald, from many, probably 2 or 3 different individuals. We know that he was impersonated in Mexico City, and probably all over the place. In Dallas for sure, in the Bolton incident, and the rifle range incident, and others that we know of. And it just so happens that if you look at all of these different signatures, each and every one of them has different characteristics that make them different from the other. Okay, believe it or not. And I've read a lot of times, in the Warren Commission, some of the documents there that the FBI verified, quote unquote, verified Lee Oswald's signature, and it turned out to be correct. I don't know which signatures they were comparing to what, but what I'm finding here is very, very interesting. And if Jim wants to go ahead and start off here.
Sure. Jack White once produced a video titled "The Many Faces of Lee Harvey Oswald." After studying several versions of the signatures attributed to Lee Oswald, I figured it was time to follow in Jack's footsteps and do digital imaging comparisons of some of them. I began by collecting the ones I readily found on the internet, which I assembled into this collage.
Okay, now from the one on the left is from the Bank of America bank account, and it says 1957. So this is probably the granddaddy of them all, Jim. I don't think that you would find Lee's anything prior to that. It says September 12 or 13 here, 1957. And I had to enlarge it here because it's right up here. You see where I've got the mouse pointer?
Yeah.
I enlarged it. Okay, but there are certain characteristics of the signature that are very, very important. We're gonna go over that. This here is, I believe this is here. This one, okay, this is an ID card, the back of an ID card of Lee.
It looks like a Social Security card to me.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Period of active, no, it says period of active duty at the top, see?
Well, that's true.
Yeah, from 24 October 1956, 11 September 1959. So that's probably the back of an ID card.
Right. Military.
Lee Harvey Oswald, okay? Then this is a passport, okay? This is from the Schweitzer College. Those who followed Lee when he first tried to get to Russia, he went to the Schweitzer College as probably as a front in order to get into Russia. Okay, then we have two different Fair Play for Cuba committees, and this one is the New York one that was signed by V.T. Lee, and this one is the New Orleans chapter that supposedly that Lee started there.
Where he was the only member.
Yeah, and look who signs it as a chapter president.
He signed it as Alan J. Heidel.
Yeah. Okay, but the one that I'm pointing at here is this one. Okay, but this is the original one. Okay, in fountain pen. Okay, so then down here we have an actual ID card. Okay, 7 December 1962. Okay, and gray brown, 71 inches. That's what, 5'11", correct? No, 5'10", 145. Lee Oswald. This one is a Dallas Public Library card when he was working at Jaggers Charles Stovall.
Yeah, that
one
doesn't look too good.
5'11", Larry, right. 71 inches, 5'11".
Okay, yeah, 5'11". And this one is a little light, but then I sort of enhanced it a little bit. And this one down here is from Mexico City. And this is the one that I'm really gonna, focus on towards the end. Okay?
Has to be a fraud. It just has to be.
Well, I just think that there's an evolution here that we're gonna see here once we get to the main collages that I'm gonna show. And but as as we get into from the earlier ones to the middle to the 60s, the early 60s on to 62, 63, there's sort of like an evolution going on here, Jim. And I think that when you study these in chronological order, I think we start to understand, a lot about the intelligence trade here. And, like I said, look, 5/28/63, this is when he first applied for the membership of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee out of New York, okay? Here, already in June 15, which is just a couple weeks later, a little over 2 weeks after that, and he's already starting his own chapter there in New Orleans, and so, basically, I just think that there's something that needs to be reviewed. So if you want to, go ahead and. Yeah.
Immediately, I noticed there was something drastically wrong with these signatures. They just didn't seem to match. Of course, signatures will vary slightly as we age. However, the vast differences among some of these was just too much to ignore. So I began to isolate and classify them in a cohesive fashion.
Yeah. So left to right, okay, we start with the Lees, okay, and I wanted to show you right here, if you look at the L here where the end of the L, you see it's got sort of like a U shape. It goes.
Bishop.
Yeah, but it goes in this manner here, and so does this one. This is the Schweitzer College. This is the Bank of America, okay? And this one also does the same. But then look what happens here. It's going the opposite way. You see this? Okay, it's going the opposite way. So even though Lee is very straightforward, but you can still see, some variations here across the board here, okay? And so now the H is something that I think is extremely important because you see this sort of like double fish hook here on the H, and you see how thin it is, okay?
Yeah.
This is the Bank of America, and this is the Schweitzer College, all right? Now, you see how this, it's like a double, this is very specific here in his signature because it happens twice. Okay, you see how, as it starts here, it goes around, comes here, and then he does the H. And the same happens here. You see a fish hook here, another one here, and then he does the H. So I believe both of these were done definitely by the same person. Okay, Now, if you study the other H's, you don't see any of that. You see what I mean? Go across, and you don't see any of that. This is such a very specific part of the signature here. It's like
distinctive.
Yeah, so you think these two are actually Lee?
It's sort of like a fingerprint here, you know, that distinguishes it from all of the others. Okay.
If those are Lee, and we would have reason to believe they are, then the others are not.
Well, as we go across, you know, and these are in chronological order, you know, with this being the last one.
Yeah, that last one looks like a kid wrote that.
Yeah, this looks like in block letter. You know, it's not even a script. Okay. And this last one, see, all these from the last batch here are from the Mexican consulate in New Orleans before he supposedly went to Mexico City. Okay. So then we go into the OS of Oswald, and the first two, the O is separate from the S. Okay. Separate. And so is this one. But all of the other ones, the O, okay, follows into the S, okay? Wait a minute, this one is also, okay? But here, and here, okay? Now, here, the first two, the O does not join the S at all right? So that's something that also needs to be pointed out. And then as we go and we do all the Oswalds, okay, and we compare, these two, I believe, are the same one, even though this one is a little tilted, but all the other components are there. Okay, see how thin the D and the L are? But then look at the others. As the L and the D, they're the loop. They are very looped here. Okay, and so are they, except for the one in Mexico City. But we're gonna discuss that one in a little bit. And if you just go and look at these and compare one to the other, I believe that these are not the same person. The first two, yes. Now then, look at the bottom two. Okay, these seem to be the same person who, because they're almost identical. The library card and the New Orleans, Mexico consulate visa. Okay, and the passport also, well, no, not because the O is not here, but these last two appear to be definitely the same person. All the components are virtually identical.
Yeah. Okay,
so, you know, just some food for thought here, you know, and something that had never been done before. So I want to show you guys an overlay when we're done here, just to give you an idea of you know, what how this works, which we already done so many overlays on facial recognition, but now, you know, we can apply it also to these signatures. So
great idea. When compared side by side, it's easy to tell the difference between these signatures. It must be pointed out that the first two, the Schweitzer College 1960 and the Bank 1957 signatures, are the only ones that seem to match. Notice the pronounced fishhooks at the beginning of the letters H, which are not seen in any of the others. Also, the O's are separate from the S's, which follow in Oswald. Now, the most important signature in this study follows the subject matter of what we have been posting here for the past few months. Look closely at the Mexico City signature. This is taken from the following document, which I found in the latest April 2018 ARRB release.
Yeah, I mean, this one is just amazing that they could pass this off, you know, for Lee's signature. You know, obviously, you know, the components are not there at all. Okay, it's like somebody just said, you know, they didn't even try to make it, you know, the same.
It's got an 8 in the O.
Yeah. And so, but you know, a lot of times, you know, what they do is they get one version of the signature, and then they put paper on top of it, and they try to trace it, and that's what that's what this one seems to have been, right here. Okay, it seems like because it seems like it's a little, like it's a little. Like it's not natural. It doesn't flow naturally. Okay. So anyway, here we go.
It's supposed to be Lee's signature at the Cuban mission when he was allegedly applying for a transit visa via Cuba to the Soviet Union. The Mexico City signature is not even close to the next one, which was obtained from the Albert Schweitzer College application letter, dated 3/1959.
Okay, this is the one that I wanted to focus on. This is the, I believe this is the real deal. Okay, and again, if this is the Oswald that went into the Soviet Union, you know, then who came back? All right, I know there's a lot of controversy on this. Okay, and here's the actual application form. Okay. And these components can also be verified, you know, on compared to Lee's handwriting. Okay, so this is something that you know, maybe somebody can, you know, pick up on, you know, later on. Okay.
It's interesting. He says there on the application form, is other languages Russian equal in fluency to 1 year of schooling. That's very minimal.
Yeah. 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 So, you know, I believe that not enough attention has been paid to Lee's signature. And I'm just going to jump over here. I don't know if you guys, okay, here. You guys can see this?
We just see the application form.
Okay.
We haven't switched, Leonard.
Oh, haven't? Oh, okay. Okay. Hold on.
How about the language? Mother tongue. English.
Hold on. Okay.
There was the Hoover memo from 1960, where Hoover talked about the possibility that an imposter is using Oswald's birth certificate.
Yeah. And Angleton, a lot of people believe that Angleton was his sponsor, you know, the one who handled him, you know, throughout his alleged defection to the Soviet Union. Now, these are two that need to be studied, and I can go ahead, okay, and overlay these, okay. But first of all, you know, just look at how the letters, you know, flow and everything. Now, if I start to do an overlay and reduce the opacity, let me just go here and move this over. All right, I'm just gonna real quickly reduce the opacity here so that I can overlay. You guys see this?
Yeah.
Now, if I blink back and forth, we'll see, you know, the difference between one and the other. Let me go here. Okay, you see that? Again,
I say it matches up, huh?
huh?
You think it matches up?
I don't think it matches up at all. Okay, look at the L and the D.
Yeah. You're
And
right.
then look how the O, you know, and the S, okay? I'm just gonna give you a little bit more opacity here, you know.
Yeah, the O is a lot different.
Yeah, for sure.
You see these? You see how? Yeah. You see how the second one here, the O comes, the writing comes across the O into the S, and here it doesn't. You see that? Okay, that's very distinctive there, you know. And you know, the W, you know, completely different. So is the A, and look at the L and the D. Okay, see that?
Yeah.
This is the best way to look at these by just blinking back and forth, you know, on the overlays. So that's all I have for tonight. Just thought that would be interesting to take a look at this.
Yeah.
Ready?
Well, for sure, the ones in Mexico have to be a fraud, right? Since you never did actually make it there.
Well, yeah, it's pretty obvious to me, you know, that whoever signed that in Mexico City was not the real Lee Oswald. And then, you know, I believe that he was impersonated in Mexico City. It's possible, you know, if you follow Judy's thesis, you know, that he went there, but I'm pretty sure that he was impersonated and not only at the Russian embassy, but also at the Cuban consulate. So, you know, They're just another chapter to the mystery of Lee Oswald.
Well, I think that's good stuff, Larry.
More confirmation.
That it does not, we do not have evidence to substantiate that Lee Oswald actually went to Mexico City, and a lot of evidence to suggest that it was a fictional account that was developed with many resources in order to try to create a false impression to serve as evidence to incriminate him of a crime he did not commit.
Yeah, and even the Lopez report said, look, you know, there's no evidence. If it happened, it had to have been an imposter. So that's all.
Absolutely. You got something for us, Don?
Yeah, in fact, I do actually.
All right.
Go for it.
All right.
Roll it out.
Okay, so I've got a video or so. I'm going to do a slide first. We'll let me grab the screen here.
You got the link in the chat?
Yeah, I will in just a sec. Let's
Okay.
see, let's do
You
that.
want to pause, or are you ready to go?
I'm ready. I had it up. Okay,
All right.
so I wasn't able to be on last week's show, but you know the 2 weeks before that I was on. You know, we had talked about the Steinlight plan, and we talked about how LBJ signed the 1965 Immigration Act, and how the intention was to flood the United States with non-European people. Well, before Steinlight and before LBJ, we had the Coudenhove-Kalergi plan for the genocide of the white people of Europe. And
You know, Don, before you get going, Alex Jones was actually talking about that today. He was saying that he has no problem, you know, with brown skin. You know, it's just the way it's going to be. You know, it's evolution. You know, don't worry about it. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I'll hold my fire on that. I'm gonna go through and read this, and then we'll talk about that.
All right.
Well,
okay.
I reported about this on Truth versus News Today too, and the Goldfish report earlier in the week. This plan to use Muslims to mass immigration into Europe to destroy Christianity as a form of punishment for, you know, historic rivalries and tensions between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So here you have one of the three great Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, using the other two, Islam and Christianity, to destroy one another. It's really diabolical.
Yeah, so let's, you know, for the members of the audience who may not be familiar with this, I'll just go ahead and read this, and then we can talk about it.
Please.
Okay, so Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi was a Jewish writer financed by Jewish bankers. In 1922, he founded the Pan-European movement, whose goal was to create a federation of European nations, you know, i.e. what turned into the European Union, to be led by the United States of America. Among his first supporters was Jewish banker Max Warburg, who donated 60,000 marks to this evil racist cause. In 1925, he wrote a book, Practical Idealism, which has become the Bible for multiculturalists and supporters of the European Union. He didn't appear in public much, but moved behind the scenes with his project for European integration and the creation of a new mixed-race slave race to serve a Jewish master race. This is the basis for the New World Order. In Practical Idealism, Coudenhove-Kalergi states, "The man of the future will be of mixed race. The races and classes of today will gradually disappear due to the elimination of space, time, and prejudice. The Eurasian Negroid race of the future, similar in appearance to the ancient Egyptians, will replace the diversity of peoples and the diversity of individuals. Instead of destroying European Judaism, Europe, against her will, refined and educated this people, driving them into their future status as a leading nation through this artificial evolutionary process. It's not surprising that the people that escaped the ghetto prison became the spiritual nobility of Europe. So what they're talking about there is when Jewish emancipation occurred in Europe, and they were let out of the ghetto, and some of us in Christian identity, we refer to that as Satan being let out of the pit in Revelation. Okay, so they were the spiritual mobility of Europe. Thus, the compassionate care given by Europe created a new breed of aristocrats. This happened when the European feudal aristocracy crashed because of the emancipation of the Jews due to the French Revolution. And the French Revolution is pretty well laid out in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. We've talked about before on the show, and we'll dive deeper into that in the future once again. But the little slide here goes on to state that the Coudenhove-Kalergi Prize is given every 2 years to the European politician who has done the most to hasten this genocide and destruction of European nations. Winners of the Coudenhove-Kalergi Prize have included Angela Merkel, who's flooded Germany with mud people.
Does that ring the bell?
In 2010, and Herman van Rompuy. Yeah, I don't know if she's Jewish, but there's some speculation on that. But you can go ahead and ring it. She might. G. Brock Chisholm, former director of the World Health Organization, has stated, "What people in all places have to do is limit birth rates and promote mixed marriages. This aims to create a single race of the world which will be directed by a central authority. The main purpose of this is to create a group of people without ethnic or national identity and therefore any cohesion." So that's what the New World Order is. Okay, and this is really what this is laying out is in fact a race war where they're going to use non-white races to invade Europe and destroy the white race. And the JFK assassination was a part of this race war. It was a part of the Jewish plan to destroy white people. That's what the 1965 Immigration Act was all about. That's what the Steinleight plan is all about, and that's what this Coudenhove-Kalergi plan is all about. And so is immigration higher than it's ever been? Okay, Gary, I'm going to put a link in the chat here. Let's see. What's the share? So I'm going to stop the share. There's that. Okay, Gary.
Yeah,
So
go ahead and pause for a second, Dr. Fetzer.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Don, we'll go ahead and play this clip for you. Here we go.
If this is our immigration tradition, what represents immigration today? I've been carrying these tubes around for 10 years talking to people about immigration. I'm going to go over here to the National Mall now and see if I can find some more people to listen. What I'm talking about is immigration tradition. Okay. And, you've heard that America's a nation of immigrants. We've had quite an immigration tradition. This country has a tradition of immigration. And so when people talk about it, sometimes numbers are hard to visualize, so I visualized them. Actually, I developed this for 7th grade. Somebody told me once, they said, if 7th graders could understand it, I might be able to present it to members of Congress that they might be able to understand it. If you'll hold this is going to illustrate our immigration tradition. The average number of immigrants who came to this country for the first 200 years, 1776 to 1976, 250,000. Now, sometimes it's quite a bit higher, sometimes it's quite a bit lower, but that's the average. That's Ellis Island, that includes everything. And at no other time in history, anywhere in history, is there anything like that kind of a surge of people into one nation. So that's our immigration tradition, 250,000. A more recent tradition from the end of World War II to the 1970s, we had a little bit higher, but you see about 255,000. So they're about the same. So the point is even though immigration went up and down, it was very low, much lower than this, much higher. The thing is that more recently, it was pretty similar. What's happened since 1965 was Congress changed the laws, whereas before you could only bring in your spouse and minor children. After 1965, you could bring in extended family.
So that's like grandparents, uncles, aunts.
Before long, you got cousins, in-laws, exactly. So instead of just a nuclear unit coming in, you ended up sort of emptying out whole villages eventually. And that created a chain migration. They didn't really think about what was going to happen. Since 1990, the average number of immigrants coming to this country is this.
Wow.
At 1 million a year. At 1 million a year. At $1 million a year. Okay? At 1 million a year. That's the change that's happened. It's probably caused immigration to become a big issue. The numbers have really gone up so much. I mean, we've gone from this traditional level to this is what we're growing every year since 1990.
Well, if you're including people here who are here undocumented.
This is just legal.
This is just legal.
This is just legal. The government says in the last few years, the average number of illegal immigrants, well, not people who are coming in and out, but people who come and settle, is running right about another 1 million a year. About another million a year, running about 1 million a year, 1 million legal, and then about 1 million illegal are settling every year. So when you put that together with just what we recently had as our tradition, the numbers would indicate why there's so much tumult about immigration in the country right now, is that you've got the 1 million a year legal, the 1 million a year illegal, compared with what's much more traditional in this country. It's not that they don't like immigrants or don't like immigration, it's just that the numbers got so high. Right now, Congress is primarily trying to solve the illegal immigration problem. But even if they're 100% successful and solve that, you still have a disparity in the tradition, the numbers, various recommendations about whether the 1 million a year ought to be coming down something closer to the traditional level, so that immigrants themselves would assimilate better, would have better lives, economically adjust more, and also so that the poor people in this country would not have so much competition in the jobs. Many times people say, well, we can't cut legal immigration because that would go against our immigration tradition. But this is our immigration tradition. Actually, what we have now is sort of against it. Anyway, those are the numbers. Now, did you know any of these numbers? Any of these numbers familiar with you? Were you familiar with those numbers?
No, I was not.
Yeah,
I was probably more somewhat familiar with this, but not
with where we'd been. Yeah. Are you familiar with any of those figures, or
yes,
sounds about right?
Yeah.
Didn't really know.
Hadn't thought about that.
No. I mean, I knew we had a big problem, but didn't really think about the numbers.
Don Fox, are you a white supremacist? Because if you don't, I mean.
Well, okay, so if you think that white people should continue to exist, then yeah, you're a white supremacist.
Absolutely. A racist or a white supremacist is what you get labeled.
Yeah.
For
so
bringing up this.
So okay, so what we saw there was that, you know, we had a certain level of immigration in this country for 200 years, and then after JFK got taken out and LBJ signed that 1965 Immigration Act, woo!
What was going on there, Don? What was Lyndon's motive? Who was he benefiting? Some agribusiness colleagues who wanted cheap labor?
Well, okay, cheap labor is the cover, but, you know, like I said, LBJ, and I'm pretty convinced he was Jewish. He was a crypto Jew. He's working on behalf of World Jewry, and the plan is, the Jewish goal is to destroy white civilization and to eliminate white people from the face of the earth.
That's pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
We
were like 90. Yeah. So we were 95% white, I guess, when I was in high school, I guess, and now we're down to, what is it, Don?
Well, okay, so, you know, by the official numbers that I had on here a couple of weeks ago, so the United States was 90% white until about 1960. And then even as late as 1990, we were 68% white. Now I think it's like 63. And fading fast. And, you know, there's some of us that tend to think that it's not even 63% white anymore. Yeah,
I'm beginning to believe that myself. And I guess the news has been just blanketed with the fact that some of these families may be separated or I mean, just almost a complete news blanket of that for a good period of time.
Yeah, they're more concerned about illegal immigrants. I mean, and really in my book, okay, they're not illegal immigrants, they're invaders. Okay, so they're more worried about invaders, their families staying together, than they are preserving the families that are already here.
Our family staying together, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah. What's the big catch in all this? Yeah, the big catch in all this war on poverty is that dad has to go. That's the number one thing. When you get all of these benefits, there can be no father in the house. And mission accomplished right there, destruction of the family. That's when you start hearing my baby's daddy. That's a direct result of all this.
So, you know, I do have one more video if you want to play about 5 minutes of this.
Sure.
Okay.
And we can talk about this. So, you know, one of the yeah, I put the link in the chat there. So one of the, you know, one of the talking points is, well, you know, if we take in more immigrants, we can alleviate some of the world poverty. We can, you know, we can put these people to work and whatnot.
I know, John, we're going to increase it here in the USA, diminish it elsewhere, and increase it right here.
Yep. So this is Roy Beck again, and he's got a gumball presentation.
Why don't we watch the whole thing? I think this is important enough. We don't have anything more pressing tonight. Let's go ahead and roll it.
It kind of repeats after about 5-6 minutes. So.
Okay. Full screen, Gary.
Is that true? Well, no, it's not. And let me show you why. This gumball represents the 1 million legal immigrants that the United States has taken every year on average since 1990. Now, who in the world deserves humanitarian compassion? The World Bank has one measure of the desperately poor of the world. They make less than $2 a day.
It's frozen, Gary.
So I got frozen up?
Yep.
I can hear me now?
Go ahead and start it again.
Okay.
Some people say that mass immigration into the United States can help reduce world poverty. Is that true? Well, no, it's not. And let me show you why. This gumball represents the 1 million legal immigrants that the United States has taken every year on average since 1990. Now, who in the world deserves our humanitarian compassion? The World Bank has one measure of the desperately poor of the world. They make less than $2 a day. And how many people make less than $2 a day in the world? We'll start with Africa. In Africa alone, there are 650 million people who make less than $2 a day. 650 million. And in India, another 890 million people, desperately poor. China adds another 480 million people, making less than $2 a day. And unfortunately, the rest of Asia has a heartbreaking 810 million people who the World Bank says make less than $2 a day. And finally, there's 105 million of Latin America's population that are desperately poor. All told, the World Bank says there are 3 billion people in the world, 3 billion people who are desperately poor, making less than $2 a day. That's 3,000 gumballs. And every year, we take 1 million and suggest that we've somehow made a humanitarian difference. Of course, we don't pull our immigrants from these desperately poor populations, do we? These people are too poor, too sick, too disconnected to make it here as immigrants. We tend to pull our immigrants out of the better off poor of the world. And Mexico tends to define the type of immigrant that we bring here because the plurality of people come from Mexico. And Mexico is poor. How many people in the world live in countries that have average incomes lower than that of Mexico? And the World Bank tells us that that number is these 3 billion plus another 2.6 billion people. 5.6 billion people in the world who live in countries with average incomes below that of Mexico. That's 5,600 gumballs. And so what is it that the elites are telling us? They're telling us that when we take this 1 million immigrants, that we somehow or another are tackling world poverty. And we have to do it regardless of the effect on our unemployed, the working poor, the most vulnerable members of our society, regardless of the effect on our natural resources. Even if we went by the most radical proposals in Washington, which are to actually double our immigration to 2 million a year, which would totally overwhelm our physical, natural, and social infrastructures, we couldn't make a noticeable difference. And we may be
froze up again.
the impoverished people of the world.
There it goes.
Frozen again?
No, that was okay.
Okay, no, it was moving.
We do take are among the most energetic, often the better educated, certainly the most dissatisfied people that if they did not immigrate would be the agents for change to improve the lot of all the people in these countries. The true heroes in the global humanitarian field are the people in these countries who have the wherewithal to immigrate to another country, but instead stay in their countries, to apply their skills to help their fellow countrymen. Unfortunately, our immigration system tends to entice these very type of people to abandon their countrymen. The impossibility of making even a dent is actually worse than it looks here. Because last year, when we took 1 million immigrants,
Yeah, it's frozen.
countries,
It's okay. Let it go.
Okay, there it goes. Okay.
80 million more people into the impoverished population. And this year, Congress is bringing in 1 million legal immigrants. And this year, according to the United Nations, these countries are expected to add another 80 million people. And next year, you can be quite sure that Congress, unless stopped by the American voters, will bring in another 1 million immigrants. And these countries, unfortunately, will be adding another 80 million people into these impoverished nations. We could take 5 million a year, but we'd never get ahead of what's happening in these countries, not in this century. Don't you see? Immigration can never be an effective or significant way to deal with the suffering people of the world. They have to be helped where they live. 99.9% of them will never be able to immigrate to a rich country. There's no hope for that. They have to bloom where they're planted. The only place that 99.9% of these people can be helped is where they live. Let's help them there.
Okay, Gary. So,
Yeah, pretty sobering there.
yeah, so those are some numbers to think about. So, remember Jacob Javits had his paper, "Let Us Open the Gates." So, what is he getting at?
Yeah.
We're gonna just let the whole third world move in?
Mm-hmm.
It's like opening your home to the homeless.
Yeah,
What happens to your home when the homeless take over?
that's right. The whole thing gets destroyed. So, what is the goal here?
Well, it's genocide, white genocide.
Yeah, and it is to wipe out white people and destroy civilization.
I always wondered, I could never understand why they continue to destroy our country and bring in as many immigrants as they possibly could. And every so often they like give citizenship to a whole stadium or a full, and now I know, you know, it's they don't like us, Don. It's the We're white guys. What else can we say?
Yeah. So
Larry, what are your thoughts about all this?
Well, how do they go about helping them on their end so that they don't have to migrate? How do you go about doing that?
Well,
Obviously, you know,
you could take
You give them the kind of assistance that we've been giving to Puerto Rico in the wake of the hurricane.
Well, it's in Puerto Rico's case, there was a tax code that was eliminated. It was phased out until for manufacturers in Puerto Rico to repatriate their profits after they left them in Puerto Rican banks for a year, and then they would be exempt from any income taxes for corporations, and that was an incentive for them to operate in Puerto Rico. Most of these were pharmaceuticals. However, now since that has been eliminated, you've seen this migration begin, and it continued to increase. And with the hurricanes, it's just been overwhelming. Okay.
Really, you mean businesses and corporations leaving Puerto Rico and coming to the mainland?
No, actually, to other points in the world where they are offered, better incentives. Like Indonesia, Dominican Republic, and just setting in Mexico. Because that's where they have better better deals than in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, same thing for Katrina. I could still be living in Dallas, Texas, with a paid-for apartment, paid electricity, food stamps, welfare, the whole thing. But the moment I decided to return to New Orleans, then I lost all of that, and I could still be there to this day.
The bottom line is that, okay, we saw all those gumballs on stage, okay, and just a mass, just jar after jar stacked on each other. And it's like, okay, so there's an overwhelming mass of poverty-stricken people. Well, and it's like, okay, so Roy Beck breaks down, okay, it's going to be impossible for those people to come here and have a better life. So how do you help them there? That's a great question. Well, it gets back to a point, I was talking about a couple of weeks ago here. So what does it really take to form and maintain a modern civilization? Well, you need a national IQ of 98 or higher. So there's going to be no anti-poverty program that's going to work in Africa because the average IQ there is 67. Okay, there's not enough intelligence there to build an infrastructure, like electricity or sewer or internet. It's just not going to happen. In these poorer parts of the world, they're not ever going to make it.
Well, unless you lived in Libya before Gaddafi was assassinated.
They had it pretty good there. I mean, again, their average IQ is hovering around, the mid to upper 80s. But
at least we had a leader that was willing to share something.
And so they had a better.
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
And Gaddafi, taking out Gaddafi was one of the key, road, one of the signposts into flooding Europe. And Gaddafi talked about that. He's like, if you guys get rid of me, Europe's going to get flooded. And lo and behold, what happened?
He's gone.
Gaddafi went, Europe got flooded. So
tell me again about how that was connected, Don. How was Gaddafi's death related to flooding Europe with immigrants?
Well, because Gaddafi kept them out of. Gaddafi kept Libya's borders secure, so he kept North Africa. He kept the Mediterranean free of all these migrant ships. And once Gaddafi was down, they just let him stampede through.
Would this have been part of the motive for taking out Gaddafi?
I'm sure it was. It was to get a Jewish central bank in there, and it was to open the borders to let the sub-Saharan Africans flood into Europe.
And the idea of sharing any of the wealth with the people had to go. And of course, he was going to have the gold dinar or currency actually backed by gold. And we know what happens when you try that.
So this is a worldwide plot to destroy civilization. and it's already
Like Western civilization.
yeah. Well, yeah, there is no such thing as non-Western civilization. I mean, so that's what the plan is, and it's already well underway, and it's probably too late to stop it.
Unless our girls start having babies that are a
Well-
lot faster rate than they have been.
Well, yeah, but when you talk about that, okay, well, why are white birth rates low? Well, part of it is, okay, so we've invited the third world in. Well, to keep those people going, you have to spend a lot of money, social benefits to feed and house and clothe these people. And so we're transferring wealth from white working people to Somalians, like say in Minnesota, or illegal immigrants in Texas here. So taxes have gone up exponentially since the 60s, especially on working people, while wages have remained flat. So white people have kind of voluntarily stopped reproducing because they can't afford it. We're subsidizing our own replacement.
And of course, their rate of reproduction is much higher than those.
Yes, and see that's something I'm going to talk about on a future show.
Population, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to talk more in depth on this on a future show about.
And all the incentives to have more children are there.
Yeah, so now you're not going to hear other shows talk about this.
Right. But there was a coup d'etat. There was a coup d'etat.
Yeah,
we
it's
can talk
very
about.
fundamental to understanding the situation, the state of the world today.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, why? I mean, does it? I mean, really, if nothing would have changed, would it really matter from which the sewer or the fence, the picket fence, or the 6th floor window or the 2nd window in the Deltex? Would it really matter where the shots came from? I mean,
No, it's the world that has changed into what we have today, and LBJ led the way, all the way with LBJ.
That's right, man. I mean, so that's what I'm getting at. This was a sea change, not just a political transfer of power from one man to another.
And I'm just gonna be straight up. We get a lot of flack from us talking like this, but it's right there for the world to see exactly what's going on. And in New Orleans now, it's mostly Mexicans, and they've always had a lot of black people. But I'm telling you, we really didn't. I can't really remember having Mexicans here until right after the hurricane, and then they were here to rebuild, and they never went away, and they just continued to allow it to happen. And John F. Kennedy would have not stood for this. He was fighting the Israeli agenda tooth and nail. And it was just a bump in the road as far as I can tell.
So we're looking at, the later stages of an invasion. This is diabolical because, see, the average person doesn't view this as an invasion. They go, well, I can see why these people would come here. They want a better life. They want education opportunities, employment, yada, yada. So the average guy on the street can say, well, yeah, I wouldn't really blame a guy. Maybe if I was him, I'd do the same thing. And yeah, maybe you would. But when you look at it from the big picture world political perspective, this is an invasion. And the goal is the same as a military invasion, which is really a military invasion would be to just gain the territory. This is different. This is to destroy the whole civilization on a incremental level. This is kind of a creeping death.
And Congress is behind it every single time. And yes, we know about them, how many dual citizens we have with their allegiance to Israel. And here we are.
Paid off. I mean, there's some guys talking about, hey, we have to stop the illegal immigration, but they still support 1 million legal immigrants a year.
Right. Legal.
Yeah, so there's nowhere for white people to go to get away from this. You can't. I mean, there's all kinds of. You would get, like, if you were to say, hey, we're going to have a white city, you would be faced with lawsuits, protests.
Oh yeah.
And you're saying, Don, the spigot turned on in 1965, and Jacob Javits had to do with it, initiating the move? And
Well, he was, I mean, this was,
Lyndon Johnson?
yeah, Lyndon Johnson signed the 1965 Immigration Act. And that's what opened the spigot.
Right.
Jacob Javits was promoting it?
Yes, yeah, he was part. Yeah, he was promoting it in the early '60s. Yes.
And
Let
there's
let us open the gates.
and I think there's 750 Jewish organizations right now in the United States that are pushing for open borders and immigration to
Abolish ICE. Yeah, open the borders. Abolish ICE.
And
Just
apologize.
like the open borders of Israel.
Yeah, right. How many Somalian immigrants are they taking in there in Tel Aviv?
Zero. Yeah. Yeah, lots of diversity for you, no diversity for them.
For us, yeah, we can have our ethno state, but not for you, Goy.
Yeah. And all this interracial marriages and stuff like that. You want to talk about something not allowed? That is not allowed.
You can't. Okay, if you're gonna if you were to say hey, I'm Jewish, I want to move to Israel. Before you can go there, you either have to prove your family lineage, or you have to take a DNA test to get in. And so that's to get into Israel. But on the flip side of the coin, Jews are all about there's rabbis signing 1,000 rabbis signing a letter. Hey, let more immigrants in here. Support the refugees. They're not refugees, they're invaders.
Right. But try it over there and talk about the door slam in your face. What you got to say, Larry, before we go? Talk to us.
No, it's been an interesting evening, gentlemen. I guess we'll do it again next week.
Yeah. Anything else, Dr. Fetzer? You look a little road worn.
Oh, yeah, I'm very weary today. I was up early, been a long day, but very interesting discussion tonight. Gary, Don, Larry, thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. Yeah, great work, Larry and Don. All right, this is the new JFK show number 203. We'll have our batteries recharged next week. We'll see you then.
All right.